I call to order and welcome you to the Middletown, Ohio regular City Council meeting for Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024. Please join me for a moment of meditation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the American flag. You will hear 3 taps of the gavel when it is time to stand. Please join me in a moment of meditation now.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk of Council, Mrs. Skank, please call the attendance roll.
Mr. Farrell?
Here.
Mrs. Carter?
Here.
Mr. West?
Here.
Mr. Horn?
Here.
Mayor Slamka?
Here. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the Midpoint Library 2025 tax budget. There are about 8 or 10 agenda items for a public hearing. Just to review those quickly, these are the swear-in. We get the staff report, then the applicant can speak, which is kind of sometimes the same thing. Then people can speak in support, people can speak neutrally, people can speak against if they're opposed. The applicant gets to speak one last time. Then we close the public comment section. At that point, council can deliberate. So now, Law Director Ben Yoder, you have the floor for the swearing in.
Thanks. Let's try that again. Thank you, Mayor. And just one point of clarification, this is a public hearing on just the tax budget. If you want to give public comment as it relates to that, this would be the time to do it. But if you're here to provide citizens comment, that's the next agenda item, i.e. something that's not relating to the tax budget, then you can just sit this one out and then you'll get to be able to give citizens comment next. So with that said, any staff and or public that's here that would like to give testimony in favor or against the 2025 tax budget, go ahead and please stand up and raise your right hand. Will any staff person be testifying?
I can.
All right, if you'll go ahead and just raise your hand. No one from the public wants to testify on the tax budget? All right, well, in that case, do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give will be true and accurate to the best of your knowledge and belief? Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Yoder. All right, so now for the staff report, we have our Finance Director, Sam Zimmerman. If you do you wish to from there instead of the podium? Okay, thank you.
This is for the city's 2025 tax budget. I just wanted to clarify that. So the city is required by Ohio Revised Code to annually prepare and submit a tax budget to the county by July 15th. We are required as part of this process to have a public hearing. The first part of the tax budget is to establish the 2025 estimated resources that may be appropriated and spent in the 2025 budget. And it also demonstrates our need for the 2025 property tax revenue. The tax budget does not set or limit council's ability to adjust, increase, or decrease the permanent budget resolution that will be passed in November of this year. The County Budget Commission will review the budget and they will judge it for reasonableness for our tax levies. After their review is done, the resolution accepting the rates is returned to the city for approval and will likely be brought to council in August. The city currently levies 6.9 mills, 2.75 of which are restricted in use. 1 mill is allocated for the fire levy, 1 is for the capital improvements, 0.6 for police and fire pension, and 0.15 for the Miami Conservancy. The remaining 4.15 mills will go to the general fund.
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman.
You're welcome.
Did we receive any written comments about this tax budget for the city? No? Okay, well, thank you very much. Is there anybody that would like to speak in support? Hearing none. Anybody who'd like to speak at all? Hearing none. And anybody who'd like to speak opposed? Okay, hearing and seeing none, we will go ahead and ask Mrs. Zimmerman, would you like to speak one more time? No, all right.
Nothing further.
Well, then we've gone through all of that. We can close the public comment section right now. This concludes the public comment portion of the public hearing. Now it's time for the council deliberations. Council, does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the tax budget? All right, seeing none, then we will move on. And is there anything else that you want to add, Mr. Yoder, at this point?
Nope, I think we're good.
Okay, then this concludes the public hearing. The next item on the agenda are the citizen comments. So please go ahead and read bullet point number 4 of our citizen comments guidelines on the screen behind us as it pertains to your presentations. A respectful professional presentation is expected. Personal attacks on staff, council members, or other individuals will not be tolerated. There will be no foul language. This is not the time for debate, questions and answer, or any back and forth conversation. This is a time for you, our residents, to be able to present to council on record, uninterrupted, and have the floor. We have 6 comment cards this evening, maybe one more. We have 7 comment cards this evening. Thank you, Mrs. Skank. Thank you. I would like to call Christy Durich to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech, and once the counter is set at 4, we will commence. Thank you.
Thank you. Christy Durich, 1050 Central Avenue Safety Council of Southwestern Ohio. And City Council recently voted to allow recreational marijuana dispensaries into our community. And some council members said Middletown's missing out on a lot of tax dollars by not allowing the dispensaries within our city. And this simply is not true. Did you know that the only monies that the city of Monroe received as income tax from the employees that work there? Now, when they agreed to their dispensaries, they were convinced that the state was going to have some revenue sharing for them, but that just did not make it to the final bill. And how I understand it, it's not going to be in the recreational bill either. So the only ones that are going to be profiting from this are the investors and the owners of these dispensaries. So what is the city of Middletown gaining by allowing recreational marijuana dispensaries in our city? We know that bringing these in are going to increase access, and some city councils say that's good because why should our citizens have to drive to Monroe or anywhere else? Increased access for adults to use legally also results in increased access for teens to experiment with and use illegally. Recent studies have just said that those who use concentrates are 5.74 times more likely to use other drugs. Edibles are 3.43 times more likely. The vapes, the THC vapes, are 3.11, and smoking marijuana is 2.57 times more likely to use other drugs. 92% of heroin users started with marijuana. 57% of those addicted to painkillers used marijuana first. It is a gateway drug. With the legalization, it's going to increase access, and if you look at other states and areas that have done that, you can expect our number of ER visits for children to triple. You can expect teen use to go up, especially with the teens that are already using, that they'll use more. Although this is in 2017, we can only imagine what it is now. There were 129,070 hospital discharges for psychosis associated with cannabis, and that's 1 person every 4 minutes. You don't hear a lot about that, but it happens. In a recent survey, they found that there are 3 million more people that smoke marijuana daily than use alcohol daily. So when we say recreational, it's not necessarily once in a while, it's people using it every day, sometimes more than once a day. So you got to ask, will increasing access to legal marijuana help the drug and violence issues in our community? The Safety Council has occupational safety, and our members have been for years saying it's really hard to get entry-level employees because they can't pass the drug test. So you have to wonder how this is going to affect that. Will other big businesses choose not to come to Middletown if you can't find healthy workers that can pass drug tests? Traffic safety is another concern, and we don't really have a roadside test for cannabis, so it's really hard to know the real data. But I do know that THC is showing up in the fatal crashes more and more. We do know that it impairs peripheral vision when you drive, it slows reaction time, impairs coordination and distorts perception, and all these skills are critical to defensive driving. So I really think if there was a roadside test, you would see that it's involved in more crashes than we know. So Destination Middletown Plan has 5 key elements that should help drive all your decisions. Will bringing marijuana dispensaries help increase resilient neighborhoods? Will it help to lead to a thriving economy or build a strong infrastructure in Middletown? Will it help increase health and safety in Middletown? Will it increase pride in Middletown? If City Council believes allowing dispensaries will lead us, then I ask you only have 1 or 2 dispensaries and you limit it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Urich. All right. I would like to now call John Young to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You'll have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. Please commence as soon as we get our 4 minutes up there. There you go. Please go ahead.
Hello, thanks for your time tonight. I'm John Young. I do not have an address here in Middletown, so do you want my home address?
Does he need to give his home address outside of Middletown?
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Yes. 9055 Valdosta Way, Waynesville, Ohio, 45068. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'm representing Grand Slam Dispensaries. It's a group of investors and friends of ours from out of state. Just a little bit of background on myself. I've got Jake and Josh, my 2 sons here, Jake and Josh Young. The Grand Slam Dispensaries, all of us that are invested in this are ex-baseball people. We've got a lifetime of baseball background. A little bit about me, I played baseball at the University of Cincinnati, played professionally for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Everyone involved in our group is either an ex-professional player or college player. So, and I'll get to that in a second, where there's that connection. So a little bit more about my background. I've been in the medical industry for over 30 years, basically working with hospitals and laboratories and cancer diagnostic testing. And so my passion has been just helping people, diagnosing cancer and saving lives. And so the connection there, when I got a call about 6 months ago about joining this group and getting into this business, was I sat and thought about it for about 30 days and then realized that medical marijuana dispensaries are helping people. And we've got our own personal stories that I won't get into tonight, but there's a lot of examples of how this is helping people and hardships and difficulties in their lives. And with connection to a doctor, with prescriptions and being able to manage that, I think it's a great thing. So that's what we're interested in. We're interested in helping people and continuing to impact lives in that manner. The other thing we want to do, and this is where the baseball connection comes in, we want to connect with the community. We really want to give back. So we want to take an initial forecast budget of $50,000 to $100,000 a year and invest that back into the youth programs, baseball programs, little leagues, high schools, college. We want to do scholarships and academic scholarships, athletic and academic, for the high schools, and be able to really give back to the community and do some really positive things. We want to go out and speak to the kids. I've been doing this for 30 years as well, coaching. I've coached my kids, I've coached college players, I've coached summer college teams, high school travel teams. I'm asked to speak all over the state when it comes to different things with the Cincinnati Reds. I've got 2 events coming up with Ellie De La Cruz in a week. I'm doing that camp. I'm doing something in Northern Kentucky with a church group and with the Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So there's lots of connections, lots of things that we want to do. It doesn't have to be connected to the business, but still giving back and using our platform as ex-professional or college athletes to talk to the kids and really make an impact there as well. Let's see, I've got 58 seconds. So again, the passion is helping people and making sure we're doing that the right way. So consultants, I want to bring in consultants to train our staff so that when people come into the dispensary, we're asking the right questions. Josh has got a lot of experience. I think he's got 5-6 years experience as a pharmacy tech. And I know that we've had some really nice impact on our own family with him advising some of us on medications. His mother, who has depression and has to take some medication, he's really helped her. Now he's working at a dispensary for the last year. And I know he tells me stories all the time about asking questions and working with people in the medical dispensary and how he's helping them. So he's got a passion for it, I think, that I'm kind of passing on to him. But that's kind of what we want to do. We want to make sure we're training our staff the right way and making sure we're doing this where we're, again, impacting those lives and making a really positive impact. So we want to partner with Middletown. We've got a spot picked out on 122. So we're looking forward to it and we're excited about it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Young.
Yep.
I would like to call Balan Hill to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You'll have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech, and please also do speak into the microphone as much as possible, and please begin. Can you restart, please? Thank you.
All right, so my name is Balan Hill. My address is 3706 Ellis Way, Middletown, Ohio, 45044. So, of course, I am here to address with issue 2 and starting to put the dispensaries here in Middletown. As you will see, I have some youth behind me. I am a prevention specialist, so my job is to prevent youth to have access to substances and the onset of substance use. So one thing I will basically say is I have asked everyone to do your research of what has actually already happened in other states and cities who have already legalized marijuana recreationally, and there were a few things that stood out to me when I did this research. One of the main things was there was a decrease in the perception of marijuana use having an impact on your life amongst youth. I talk to my teens all the time. Everyone talks about with the dispensaries, oh, there will be a police officer in there, they'll ID, and all of them told me on a Zoom call, all we have to do is ask someone to get it for us. It's not that big of a deal. So our biggest issue, like Christy mentioned, is we are increasing access. Another issue is the concept of social norming. So when you look up and there are multiple dispensaries in your community, we have normalized this behavior. Okay, so with that being said, other things that popped up was with these other cities and states, there was an increase in the poison control, because of young children getting access to gummies or anything that looks like a candy. That was one thing that popped up, that increase. Another thing that did, of course, Christy mentioned a lot of these regarding the concept of motor vehicle accidents, increase in mental health, and this was all amongst young people. And since that is who I work with, that is my biggest concern right now. So as a person who works directly with youth all over Butler County, I have done youth-led work in Montgomery County, Franklin County, Hamilton County. And one of the biggest things that young people are saying is they are struggling with their mental health. So do we want to create this access for them? All right. Also, with that being said, I want us as a whole community to look at some of the issues that Middletown School District is facing right now. We were just in the news for our truancy issue. Do we want to put dispensaries in our community to where our young people can have increased access? I don't think that's something that we want to do. So another thing our youth will be addressing is you can already see a trend that we are already dealing with right now. If you drive down Brill right now, you can count about 4 vape shops that you have access to. And a few of my youth have told me directly, I know the ones that do not ID at all. So if we are already having this issue with vape shops, do we truly think that it's going to skip over and it's not going to affect us with having these dispensaries? So I'm going to keep it short and sweet because some others actually had already pointed out some key points, and I'm going to leave the rest for my youth to address. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Forgive me if I get your name wrong. I would like to call Cohen Toler to the podium. Hello. Please do state your full name and your Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech, and once we reset the clock, we will commence, and please do speak into the microphone.
My name is Cohen Toler. I live at 312 Sharon Court, and I'm speaking on issue 2. So I personally haven't had a very good school experience because a lot of the teachers, they just don't care. They just want to get the kids through the school, and I feel like this money that's being put towards the dispensaries could be put towards the school to actually help kids with their learning and or what they need help with, like, because my teachers, personally, I haven't had that many teachers that actually sat down with me, actually did the work with me and did stuff with me. They just gave us the work. They didn't have us do anything. And Also, as Valon was saying, with all this stuff being brought in, with like marijuana being legalized, and there already being areas where they're being illegally given out because they're not being ID'd, like what she was saying, what's gonna stop them from not giving it out to minors at the dispensaries? And I just feel that this is not a good thing for our city, because I feel that this could end in something that's worse than what it could be prevented. Because I personally have family that have smoked marijuana. They are not the nicest when they are intoxicated. And I feel like if all of Middletown's going around intoxicated or acting aggressive, then that's just gonna make it a lot worse for everybody that lives here. And I would not want that for the people that live in this community with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like now to call Ava Aldridge and Shivani Christie to the podium. I am so sorry. I did not get the last name correct. And ladies, if you would please both state your full names and your Middletown residences for the record, and then please do address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes together of uninterrupted speech, and go ahead and please commence.
My name is Ava Aldridge. I live at 103 Songbird Court, Monroe, Ohio, 45050.
My name is Shivangi Shrishti. We're both a part of the youth-led prevention group.
You can move the microphone. Yeah, there you
Agents
go.
of Change.
Thank you.
I'm a student who just completed the 9th grade and someone who deeply cares about the well-being of our youth. I want to address the council's proposal to establish up to 5 marijuana dispensaries in our city, which I believe would have harmful effects on our youth.
Did you know 1 in 4 teens indulge in smoking, vaping, or other drug activities, even in our schools? As a sophomore at Middletown High School, it's every day teens are smoking and vaping, which usage of these drugs weaken cognitive development, reduce academic performance, and increase mental health issues.
The increased accessibility of marijuana is a significant concern. At my school, I've seen 14-year-olds smoking weed even before Issue 2 was passed. The presence of these dispensaries will only make it easier for teens to obtain marijuana, whether through friends who are over 21 or taking it from their parents. This easy access can lead to higher rates of use among teens.
This handout from the brand Mood, which sells 100% legal THC, and the marketing on this talks about how it has discreet packaging, easy ordering, and no medication, no medical card needed. And this was sent to a home with youth. And marketing like this, which has increased since the bill passed, is intriguing to the eyes of our youth and an easy gateway for access, more so for youth who have family members who use marijuana, can set a bad example and seem normalized to our youth. Not to mention, youth being exposed to secondhand smoke is very harmful to their development, releasing cancer-causing chemicals and endangerment to their health.
It's alarming to note that 9% of our youth in 9 to 12 use marijuana daily or nearly every day, an increase of 80% since 2008. Additionally, a study using monitoring the future data showed that 8th graders from schools located close to medical marijuana dispensaries were more likely to have used marijuana compared to those who weren't. By opening recreational marijuana dispensaries, these numbers will increase drastically. While the council is considering multiple dispensaries, I urge you to think about our community's priorities. Why not focus on opening fun and healthy activities for our children, such as an aquatic center and the public pool? These facilities provide safe environments for kids to engage in physical activity, socialize, and develop healthy habits. Investing in these kind of amenities shows that we value our children's health and development.
In conclusion, we respectfully ask the council to lower the number of marijuana dispensaries and prioritize the creation of safe spaces for our youth. Let us work together to ensure healthy, supportive environment for the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ladies. I would like to call Amy King to the podium. Please state your full name and Middletown residence or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech. When we reset the clock, please commence.
Hi, I'm Amy King. I live at 1616 Sherm Drive, Middletown, Ohio. I have lived at that address for 26 years. My husband and I moved to the city of Middletown because we've worked in Middletown for 32 years. I'm opposed to allowing a marijuana dispensary in the city. On a recent trip to Alaska, our driver was talking to my husband's son and his girlfriend that marijuana is recreational for use in Alaska, but we can't partake because we are not residents. And my comment was, well, I can't partake in it because my job does not allow that. I get drug tested. My husband dittoed that. He cannot do it. His job does not allow marijuana. My son cannot, who's a recent college graduate, and his girlfriend cannot. So it just made me think, what kind of jobs are people going to get that are allowed to use marijuana? My company, we do not allow it, medical or recreational. We're turning people away every day because they can't pass a drug test. Sitting at my desk at work, I am closer to the medical marijuana dispensaries in Monroe than I am to the new pool that's going to go out at the Y. I mean, think about that. I already have better access to the facilities than the new pool that we're going to be building at the atrium. And my job is right across the street from the community center. I think that is some of the area that we have to be cognizant of, right? So the kids that live around the community center can go to Monroe easier than they can to go to the pool. I'm a community volunteer. I work in the south side of Middletown, and I live on the north side of Middletown. And I always say, I work with kids that are in children's services. And I say, this is going to be my last one. This is going to be my last one. I'm not going to do it anymore. But then they say, hey, there's this kid. And guess what? They live between where I work and where I live. So in that short area, there's always kids in Middletown that need help. And if you look at their background, if you really dive into what's put them into children's services, a lot of times at age 12, they start with alcohol. And then at 13, marijuana comes in. And then after that, it's just things harder than that. I'm interested in helping people. I'm interested in helping kids succeed. I'm interested in helping adults be proud of the jobs that they have so they can make a living for their family. And I know the jobs that pay that, I know a lot of the jobs that pay that will not allow recreational or even medical marijuana. I think different communities have different needs, and I think Middletown does not need dispensaries in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. King. Our last comment this evening, I'd like to call Mrs. Jackie Phillips Carter to the podium, please. Please do state your full name and Middletown or work address for the record. Please address the council as a whole. You will have 4 minutes of uninterrupted speech as soon as we reset the clock. And please commence.
Good evening to the mayor and the entire city council, to my city managers, to the city of Middletown residents, staff, and friends. I'm here tonight as a resident of Middletown. I'm a mother, I'm a Mimi, and I'm a longtime health professional. On the agenda tonight, there is an item to be discussed, limiting the number of marijuana dispensaries to 5. Mr. Horn has stated at the last meeting that we may want to start a little lower so we can, we can always go up, but it might be we can't go down. And I do believe, hearing some of the discussions amongst all of you, we had 0 to 5 in that discussion. So I would urge the council tonight just to move more slowly when it comes to permitting the dispensaries here in Middletown. Research continues to be done regarding the health and safety implications of recreational marijuana. Now, while we certainly respect the rights of adults to make their own informed choices, we health professionals do have serious concerns about marijuana getting into the hands of children, especially when it is presented in the forms of gummies, brownies, hard candy. We need more education with our families, in our community, with individuals, and speak about the safety of marijuana and the importance of keeping them away from children. I would be remiss as a health professional not to come speak before you tonight, and my request would be 2. if that's the lowest one that we can have. But be known that we always need to continue educating our community and what's the best thing to do to be responsible. Think about our kids. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public participation. The next item on our agenda is council comments. We will begin to my left with Councilmember Farrell, followed by Councilmember Carter, and then to my right with Councilmember West, followed by Councilmember Horn. I will speak last. Mr. Farrell?
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple quick things. First off, appreciate everybody coming down for citizen comments. Really appreciate the kids, to be honest with you. I know when I was your guys' age, I probably would not have been able to come down and talk in front of all these adults, so appreciate you guys. To a couple of your comments, so just so the public's aware, the city is not personally investing any dollars into any sort of medical marijuana or recreational business, just so you're aware. And then we do, as Ms. King said earlier, we hopefully should have an aquatic center open up for the city next year, which we're really excited about. That's been something that's been on my heart since I was elected. To Ms. King's point, yes, it's not in the middle of town, unfortunately, but it's a way to make it sustainable for the city, hopefully for years to come. So that's all I really have, Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Farrell. Mrs. Carter?
I'd like to thank the teens for coming down and speaking. I think you guys did a great job, and I'm with you. I do not want to see any dispensaries in Middletown. So I'm done.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. Mr. West?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to thank everybody for coming down tonight, especially the young adults. It's good to see involvement from the community at all ages. Not much to say, but for 4th of July weekend coming up, a lot of events, so look on the city page, and everybody keep your fingers and toes.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Horn?
I have to follow that. Yeah. Anyways, I'd like to welcome everyone. You know, it's always appreciative to see young ones getting involved in the community. And the young man who gave that comment, I also went to Middletown High School, and I've made my thoughts known before, but it's really disturbing at times that our school system, out of a rating of 5 stars, can only get a 1 star. And we just had a testimonial of a student who goes there. So it's not just me being a graduate and rocking that 2.5 GPA that I graduated with and struggled as an adult. I'll be the first to say it. And I said it to the Miami University. So just keep doing in any type of mentoring you can get to get you through it. You'll be fine. And then you can go on with your collegiate career and you'll do great. But it's just disturbing that we actually have testimonials about what's going on within our city limits. Okay, let's go to happy stuff. So we got a newsletter now. Isn't that awesome? We got our summer issue, very interesting. We had a citizen here on this. If you flip through there, it's really nice about this, about our summer 2024. This will be done quarterly, so it's going to be for each season. So it actually helps our citizens, and we have a paper version, and then we have a digital version, so you can see what's going on in the coming months. It's kind of nice that we invested in this, and the folks really worked hard on it, and like I said, it's very informative. It also has things with health to help our citizens, and anything, talks about roads, and there's a lot of things that's going on in the farmers market, and economic development that's also going on. It's also about talking about economic development. Some news shows, they'll do this, what's called outside the Beltway. Well, I want to do what's outside of Middletown, just to help us to understand what we need to do. So recently in the news, Liberty Township was given an exit by the governor to help develop 700 acres for residential and retail, which will help that community out. And then it also mentioned that Westchester is going to go forward with a $278 million residential and retail over on Union Boulevard. Now, why am I mentioning other places when we're talking about Middletown? Well, that just should spur us on to continue to try to grow. We need about 3,000 homes added into our community. We've seen, and today it's July, and if you drive by Renaissance Point, you will see that the earth is moving, literally. We recently purchased the town mall to make more development. The Starbucks is coming. And we also have the La Rosa's, and I understand also Chick-fil-A is coming. Great. So we see that these things are coming, and the reason I mention that is if you look at this, there's going to be a great saturation of development from 675 to 275. And we have that opportunity to be part of that and to bring people to our city for things that they want, for choices they want to make, and where they want to live and what recreation they want to have. To you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Horn. I have several comments, just some things to talk about that have happened, and some things are coming down this week. So many things, like Mr. West was saying. On Wednesday, June 19th, like Mr. Horn was saying, was the groundbreaking for Renaissance Point, just past our I-75 overpass. The project will bring Class A retail and event center space, residential units, restaurants, and hotels to our part of the corridor. We are excited about this new project, and I want to again thank all former city council members, including Mr. Farrell, the former mayor, our city manager, and all the city staff who have worked for more than 2 years on this project. Also on Wednesday, June 19th, Care Portal invited us to see a pre-screening of the very important film, a movie called Sound of Hope, The Story of Possum Trot. Made by Angel Studios, this movie is based on a real-life story of a church in a small community in eastern Texas called Possum Trot, where 22 families adopted 77 of the hardest-to-place children in the system. The movie comes out in theaters this Thursday, July 4th. Their goal, Angel Studios' goal, is to have as many people as possible see the film that day or in the next days after. About a week they will have it in theaters, to advertise the message as much as possible and to send a loud message together that there should never be a child without a home. For more information, please visit their website, angel.com/hope. We want to congratulate Dr. Anadra Million, a Middletown City School teacher who was crowned Mrs. Ohio America 2024. Dr. Million will now compete for the title of Mrs. America 2024 in Las Vegas this August. I'd like to give a little bit more information about the festivities for our 4th of July. Please come out and join us for fireworks and fun tomorrow, July 3rd, Wednesday, for our Independence Day Festival at Smith Park. The fun begins at 4 p.m. and goes on until 11 p.m. There will be a sponsor's hospitality tent, free kids zone until 9:30 p.m. with face painting, inflatables, and a balloon artist. Oak Witherspoon Band begins at 8 p.m. There will be a flag jump and then also a pyro jump later in the evening by Team Fast Tracks, and then the wonderful Yoakum fireworks display at the end of the night, which I hear will be even bigger than last year. We want to thank all of our sponsors, especially Moose Lodge 501, for bringing this great event to us. Please also come out for Middletown's 4th of July parade, Path to the Future, with Grand Marshal Joni Crow, the longest tenured employee of the Middletown City Schools District, who currently serves as an intervention specialist at Middletown Middle School. Mrs. Crow is entering her 45th year in education as a MIDI. The parade begins at 10:30 a.m., starting from Smith Park, going to Main Street, and then up Central Avenue, and ending at the railroad crossing at about 11:30 a.m. For more information, please email Jerry Lewis at JERIL, as in Lewis, at cityofmiddletown.org. This Friday, July 5th, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., please come downtown to enjoy an old-fashioned ice cream social at White Dog Park. DMI is partnering with Grandpa Joe's, and there's a discount on ice cream tasting. There's a scavenger hunt / pub crawl and an ice cream eating contest. To sign up for that contest, please visit downtownmiddletown.org. Also this Friday, July 5th, from 5:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., please come downtown to enjoy Middletown Connects Art in the Alley, a free family-friendly art project. Come down and look for the fish downtown near Midstate Middletown. For more information, please visit the website middletownconnect.com. Also, the Resource Hub on Expungement is this Saturday, July 6th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Elks Lodge at 912 8th Avenue. There will be refreshments, and the mental health unit will also be there. There is a guest speaker at 10:30 a.m. who went through the process and now works in law enforcement. She will speak to how this process changed her life. For more information, please visit the website middletownconnect.com. Midpoint Library Middletown is hosting Story Time at the Park next Friday morning, July 12th at 10 a.m. at Sunset Park. This will be a great way to spend some glorious time out in the sunshine. For more information, please visit their website, midpointlibrary.org, and that's midpoint with an E. Middletown's next movie in the park is next Friday, July 12th at Goldman Park from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. The feature is the Super Mario Brothers movie. Character meet and greet and activities begin at 7 p.m. with the movie beginning at 9. Free snacks during the movie will be provided by Briel Church. Food trucks for cost are Ralph's Mystery Food and Tacos Colima. For more information, please email Jerry Lewis at jerryl@cityofmiddletown.org. Save the date. Middletown Burger Week is July 8th through the 14th, with over 25 local restaurants participating. For more information, please again email Jerry Lewis at jerryl@cityofmiddletown.org. All summer long is summer lunch at the library. Children from birth to age 18 can receive a lunch Monday through Friday, 12:30 to 1 p.m. at Midpoint Library Middletown. The summer food service program is funded by the USDA and is provided through a partnership between Midpoint Library and Children's Hunger Alliance. Let's see here. Just finishing up, there are always many ways to get involved with your community and to give back. Join a board or committee, run for office, apply for a job with the city, volunteer at the hospital, pick up trash in your neighborhood or park, plant a garden in your yard, find joy and satisfaction for a job well done in whatever work you do, smile at a neighbor. Find something that you can do regularly and give back. We are all connected and we are all in this together. The care of our city is an adventure in which we all get to share. And lastly, just as a reminder, the City of Middletown accepts applications for our boards and commissions throughout the year. So if there is something that you have an interest in and you wish to give back to your city in this way, please do submit your application. You can find out more at cityofmiddletown.org. And that's all for me tonight. This concludes our council comments. The next agenda item is City Manager's Report. City Manager, Mr. Lawley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Slampka, members of council. Tonight we have a couple things under City Manager's report, and we are going to start with the presentation by the library staff on the Midpoint Library System Levy presentation.
Do we have library staff?
Do we have the library staff here? Okay, I guess they were not coming.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry about that. We were under the impression that they were coming to present. They will be bringing legislation forth at the next council meeting.
Would we be able to invite them for the next one?
Yeah, we'll get back with them and see what was up.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is an update for the Oakland Park renovation, and Ashley Combs, our Assistant City Manager, will give this presentation.
Good evening. I just wanted to provide an update for the Oakland Park renovation as we move forward with that. So, as you know, the project background, the residents in Oakland Park were surveyed to gather their input for the park's renovation. Items that were desired were updated playground equipment, park fitness equipment, a shelter with picnic tables, updated basketball court, pickleball court, and new park signage and benches. So the available funding that we were going to be utilizing for this project is CGBG funding, and the project funding amount is $495,240.28. Can move on to the next slide, please. So these are existing park photos that were taken today. As you can see, the existing park playground equipment is very old. Our existing courts are in need of resurfacing. That's the new shelter location at the bottom left. Our existing green space, and again, another shot of the existing courts there. Next slide, please. So the park upgrades, as you can see, the 2020 shelter would be right there along Baltimore. So as you can see, there's purple on here and there's some blue. So the purple indicates the concrete removal and replacement, as well as curb and curb patching. The blue indicates that there will be 8 trees removed as a part of this, but we will be planting those trees back in the green space, so not to worry, 8 trees will be replaced. You can see to the top, the orange box indicates new pickleball courts, so there'll be 2 of those that you'll see here soon in the pictures. Next slide, please. This is an example of the new park shelter that we will be receiving. The updated courts, so 2 resurfaced basketball courts, and then the addition of, as I mentioned, 2 pickleball courts. the new playground equipment. Yeah, that's fine. As you can see, there are swings, multiple slides, different things, great activities to replace the existing equipment there. You can go on. The new site furnishings, picnic tables, trash receptacles. My favorite is the water bottle refilling station, new benches, and then a bike rack. One thing that's not on here, we will be adding grills once the park renovations are complete. Next slide, please. And there's a shot, it's not to exceed 10,000, but that is the new exercise equipment that we do plan to put in the park. And then this is the new signage. As you can see, it is going to be consistent with the Sherman and Goldman Park signage. And then this is the whole package deal of the bid selections. As you can see, 4 and 5 are actually on your motion agenda tonight for the playground equipment and the ball court resurfacing for the basketball courts and the pickleball courts. So the total estimated expenditures are $495,819.79. So we're very excited to be able to utilize our CDBG funding and get this project moving. It's been a long time in the making, so we're excited to bring that to you this evening.
Thank you. That is like everything everybody ever wanted. It's a dream come true. Thank you so much for all the hard work.
We really wanted to hit everything that the residents asked for. This is a big deal to them and as well as us. We're excited to do it.
Thank you so much. I heard back from Middletown Connect as well, and that is just, they're so excited. The neighborhood is extremely excited, so really looking forward to this. When does this get started?
Right away. As soon as you approve, if you choose to approve tonight, we would like to get moving right away.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments?
Right away is not a time, not a day. So do you mean in the middle of July? At
Yes.
the end of July?
As soon as we're ready to start moving on the resurfacing and the playground equipment. Yeah.
I go to Oakland Park, and this looked like it's going to be expanded because that's a small park, and I'm looking at all these things on here, and I'm wondering how all of this will fit in that little space.
It will. We worked with the superintendent, Charlie Anderson, and he worked with the different vendors. It will all fit and all fit very nicely.
Okay.
We're confident that the neighborhood's going to be very excited and see a transformative project down there.
Okay. A lot of these pictures, though, aren't of the Oakland Park area, right? These are places that you've already put equipment.
This is our actual selected. So each one of those photos that I showed you in the examples, that's actually from each one of the bid selections that we have right there on the screen. So those are actually the vendors and the equipment that we have selected that will be placed in Oakland Park.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great job, Ashley.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And I agree. I was going to ask, oh, we still have a water fountain, but the water bottle like refill machine is even more exciting.
Yeah, we're getting ready to actually replace all of our fountains in the building with those too. So staff's very excited as well.
I was thinking about that.
So some of the other parks will get them also, that type of.
When we get to those next parks, we'd be happy to look into the same amenities as well. We will be doing that, but the selections on the screen were tailored to the Oakland Park residents.
I seen that. Where did I see that? I seen that somewhere else, that water fountain, and in Dayton. And I was saying, it would be nice if we had them in all the parks.
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be nice.
That is the goal, for sure.
Right. Any other comments or questions?
No, good job, Ashley.
Thank you.
Looks good.
Thank you very much. Okay.
I've got a couple more things.
Certainly. Yes, Mr. Lally.
Yeah. I have a couple announcements. Want to remind everybody that the next trash bash, the citywide cleanup, will be Saturday, July 13th, 2024, from 8:30 to 12:30 at the following locations: the bus terminal, 55 South Broad Street, at 1701 South University Boulevard, the facility, the large warehouse facility that's, you see the inbox stock sign on, that's actually owned by Acres Packaging now. And then 601 North Brill Boulevard, the Middletown High School site. Everything is pretty much the same as last time, with the exception that you'll be limited to limit of 10 tires per address. So we're excited. This was a huge success back in April when we did it, and we look forward to doing another one here in July, on July 13th from 8:30 to 12:30.
Mr. Lally, will we be accepting tires at each location, or only one?
Each location, yes, each location.
Wonderful, thank you.
Have we pushed that out much on social media lately? Okay. On the city website? I haven't seen it, so I'm just
It
curious.
has been put out initially. And now we'll start hitting it more over the next week.
Okay, thanks.
Yes. The next thing, I just want to let council know that I will have an update by Tyler Roberts here. He'll do a presentation on August 6th, council meeting under city manager's report on the progress of the aquatic center. Right now, they're going through finding a general contractor and some other stuff, and August 6th, he will have more detailed information in a set schedule and a timeline. And that's all I have.
Question, did he kind of give any sort of indication that having it complete by next year and open would be an issue?
No, he did not.
Okay.
No.
All right, thanks.
He did say he would have all that information on August 6th.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. I believe our residents will really be looking forward to that update, as will we. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is our consent agenda. Mrs. Skank, will you please present the consent agenda?
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file the following board and commission minutes: the library board minutes of March the 20th and April the 17th, 2024, to confirm the promotional appointment of Aaron Cox to the position of fire apparatus operator in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire, to confirm the personnel appointment of Deborah Wells to the position of code specialist in the Community and Economic Development Department, and to accept the resignation of Rachel Rutherford from the Historic Commission.
Thank you, Mrs. Skank. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. We will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. The consent agenda is approved. Our next item is the motion agenda. We have 3 items on our motion agenda this evening. Ms. Skank, please present item A on the motion agenda.
To receive, file, and adopt the 2025 tax budget.
Thank you. Mr. Lally, do you have anything to add?
The only thing we had to add, once again, this attached 2025 tax budget for the city of Middletown is hereby submitted as required by the Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 5705. And this is motion agenda. We have to have this to in by July 15th. That's all I have.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve item A to receive, file, and adopt the 2025 tax budget?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second?
Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Oh, yes. Is there any discussion? No? Okay. And okay, hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Mrs. Skank, please present item B on the motion agenda.
To authorize a contract with Game Changer Athletics in the amount of $183,967 for refurbishing the existing basketball courts and adding pickleball courts at Oakland Park.
May I have a motion to approve item, I'm sorry, Mr. Lally, is there anything that you'd like to add?
Assistant City Manager Combs.
As you just saw, this was with the presentation, and again, this is to enter into a contract with Game Changer Athletics for the refurbishing of the basketball courts and the pickleball courts there at Oakland Park. The total cost of refurbishing is $183,967, and the funds are appropriated in the Community Development Block Grant Fund 429.
Is there anything further?
That's all.
Okay, thank you. And do I have a motion to approve item B to authorize a contract in the amount of $183,967 for refurbishing and/or adding basketball and pickleball courts in Oakland Park?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Mrs. Skank, please present item C on the motion agenda.
To authorize a contract with Pinchura in the amount of $135,978 for replacing the existing playground equipment at Oakland Park.
Mr. Lally?
Once again, Assistant City Manager Combs.
This also goes with the presentation you heard tonight. Only thing to add, again, is that the funds are appropriated in the Community Development Block Grant 429 account. And I want to mention that the staff reports do indicate that both of these projects will be completed by fall.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Is there any further discussion? Do I have a motion to approve item C to authorize a contract in the amount of $135,978 for replacing existing playground equipment at Oakland Park?
Motion.
Is there a second? Having been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
Yes.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. That concludes the motion agenda. The next item on our agenda tonight is legislation. We have, I believe we have eight items of legislation this evening. Mr. Law Director, Mr. Ben Yoder, please, the legislation.
Yeah, and just a point of clarification, there was previously 9 on the agenda. Item number 4, I believe, is what was pulled from the official version, so we won't need to go over that. So the first item, is yours the most accurate? I think the item that I have has item number 4, and was that not pulled?
Item number 4 was pulled.
Okay. Let me just go off of this one to make sure we're good. No, you're great. All right, so now we've got correctly 8 items on the agenda. The first one of which is ordinance number O-2024-40. It's an ordinance repealing section 624.026 of the codified ordinances, which pertains to medical marijuana cultivators, processors, and retail dispensary establishments being prohibited. This is a second reading.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. Mr. Lally, do you have anything to add?
Just, Council, the next 3 items, pieces of legislation deal with marijuana. The one is to repeal the criminal prohibition on marijuana. Second is to amend the current codified ordinance for the cultivation of marijuana. And thirdly, to approve a limit on the number of cannabis dispensaries in the city of Middletown. This legislation in front of you, item number 1, is repealing the criminal prohibition on marijuana.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So this is where we talk about, just so I'm correct, how many we want to, no, sorry.
Third
Or, no.
No, this is just the criminal aspect.
Yes, this is the criminal.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Carter,
No.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka.
Yes. The yeses have it, and the motion passes, or the ordinance passes. Mr. Yoder, the next legislation item, please.
Second item is ordinance number O-2024-41, an ordinance amending section 624.025 of the codified ordinances pertaining to cultivation of marijuana. Again, a second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Lally?
And then, Council, this is to amend the current codified ordinance of the cultivation of marijuana.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter,
No.
Mr. West,
Yes.
Mr. Horn,
Yes.
Mayor Slanka,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. I'm sorry, the legislation passes. Mr. Yoder, the next legislative item, please.
Third item is ordinance number O-2024-42, an ordinance limiting the number of cannabis dispensaries in the city of Middletown to 5. Second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Lally?
Council, this is to approve a limit on the number of cannabis dispensaries within the city limits. Staff is proposing a limit of 5 dispensaries based on the previous discussions between staff and City Council.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just want to make just a few comments on marijuana in general. I mean, this is obviously one of the hotter topics that we've touched on the last few months. A lot of people that watch city council meetings, they kind of know my stance. But, you know, I took a second look at a lot of this, and I looked at a lot of the studies. And oftentimes when you look at studies, you have to look who funds those studies. And if you look at most of the anti-marijuana statistics that are out there, they've been funded by Big Pharma. And I will say this, and I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. The real epidemic for our youth in this country is absentee parents, fast food, and not prioritizing academics. When I was a kid, I had access to drugs, all kinds of stuff, growing up on the west side of Cincinnati. I didn't have a dad. I probably should have been a statistic, but I had mentors in my life. So while a lot of people look at this and say, this is going to infiltrate the city, I look at this completely differently. We have a big problem with prescription drugs in this country, whether they be painkillers or even antidepressants. We have a big problem with alcohol. And so looking at where my life has taken me to this point, and when I was in the military coming out, you know, back then they were pushing anything that a pharmaceutical was producing. And it led to a lot of my friends eventually being hooked on heroin. And I think back on that, and I had some friends that got out, and even though we lived in California back then, it was still illegal. They went the cannabis route instead of Big Pharma. And I can say all of those guys are working successful careers now, raising their families, and they didn't fall into that Big Pharma trap. I don't take this decision lightly. I think a lot of people will run straight to social media and just say, oh, he just wants to be a pothead. I can't partake in it. My career, I cannot touch anything, really. Not only am I drug checked, but background checked continuously. It's not just periodically. It's a continuous, ongoing thing. So this isn't anything particular for me, but when I look around and I see the amount of people that are looking for prescriptions to solve their ailments or solve their depression, I just think it's sad. And then I would like to thank the gentleman that spoke earlier, because I do believe there is a cannabis piece to people that are suffering, whether it be from terminal illnesses or other illnesses. And so this is something that I've really taken a hard look at long before I was ever elected to city council. And it's something that I knew was going to be a hot button in the city. But when we look at where this country's going and the availability of it, and we've spoken to folks in neighboring communities that do have dispensaries, and it's just my profound belief, and I said this when I was campaigning, that I feel the need that having cannabis available, whether it be medicinally or now, since then, recreational has passed, even though we don't have legislation on it yet. I feel like it does have a need in society, and really the people that dislike it are Big Pharma. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. West. Is there any other discussion or comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Horn.
First thing I want to say is I am very proud that I get to sit by this guy every first and third of the month. He speaks from his heart, and he speaks very eloquently about what he believes. The way I feel about this, thanks, Steve. The way I feel about this is choices. And unfortunately, our health director left because I'm not going to ask a question or anything like that, but she'd probably be to the right. Oh, there you are. So my thought is because I was very close to my grandparents, which was of the World War II generation, and they both died from emphysema because they chose to smoke from the age of 14 to age of 70 when they passed away. The leading, some of the leading killers in the United States is heart disease, lung cancer, cirrhosis of the liver, or deciding to get behind a wheel of a car. Those are choices. And those are things that you can go to our local convenience stores and get those things. And as long as you're over the age of 21, you're allowed to purchase those things. What this is this is a choice. You can choose to do this. I work in the construction trade. Like Steve, I cannot partake. And when I worked in the big boy world, when you had an employment agreement that you was supposed to read and then sign it at the back, you had to agree that the fact of you could potentially get randomly piss tested, or if there was an incident or an accident, you were going to the hospital and you were going to be tested. And that's just the way it is. So to Ms. King's point about we need employees, it's choices. You have to choose to do this. Employers charge more for people who choose to smoke. That's a fact. When you fill out your form to get your health benefit and you say, I am a smoker, you will pay more for your health benefit. It's a choice. This is a choice. No one's going to make you go there. You can not go there, drive by there, never go there. All we're doing is, again, this area is being saturated with growth, which we want, with retail. And we have citizens daily that are going to drive to Monroe or to Oxford or to 7 Mile or to wherever, Dayton. And we have folks that want to come in here. And the owners I've spoken to, they also want to invest, which they always want to say that to do the right thing, to invest in the community. But if they do, that's even better. More programs, more equipment for our parks, more income coming into the city coffers. So that's why we want to be on the leading edge as a city and take this in consideration. But again, it's a choice. Just like the one young lady said, you drive down Braille, you have all these vape shops. We also have a snake shop if you're into that. So it's a choice. You can do that if you want to. My feeling is on this, is this the right one? Yes. I'm still at 3, but we can have a conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Horn.
I'd like to say a couple of things regarding choices. Infants does not have choices, and if there is smoke around them in their homes, they can't get up and go outside, get away from the smoke. So they don't really have choices, and we don't have any data saying what it does to an infant brain. 3-year-olds, 5-year-olds, they don't have choices. I worked 18 years as a substance abuse counselor, and I've seen what drugs will do to women and men. I worked with women and I worked with men, and most of them say they started out smoking marijuana. And once they got that fuzzy feeling, they wanted to feel more. Once they found something to cover their pain and their trauma, they wanted to find more. We don't need it. We're going to progress because it's our time. It's our time to progress. That's why we're putting money into everything there is in the city. We're opening up shops. We're opening up convention centers. That's going to bring us money. Hotels, restaurants. So if we lose out on not bringing marijuana to Middletown, oh well, maybe our children will survive. But right now, who will benefit from this? I met a guy that lived in Boston, and he has a dispensary in Lebanon, Ohio. So who benefits? Will our children come and speak to us again about the teachers not paying attention to them? And so I'll find something else to do. How will they do their lessons? I'm gonna smoke this and then I'll go in there and do my math. No, I'm gonna go in there and eat a bunch of food and go to sleep. So that's my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter.
I'm with Paul. I think at 3 shops, I'm good with that. Didn't really come in tonight to bring this up. It's not something I really talk about often, but my dad died when I was really young, and, well, not really young, I was 20. But my dad was a very, very bad alcoholic. He essentially drank himself to death. And when I was 12, he was so intoxicated that he drove into a house. And that was the beginning of his downfall. Very, very well educated man, very successful. Ran a cath lab when he was about 30 years old. Did open heart surgery on people, saved their lives every day. But he had a problem with addiction. He couldn't beat it, spent his whole life trying to beat it. I wish to God I could have gave him some medical marijuana. So for everybody that says who needs it, it could have saved my dad's life. It could have saved a lot of people's lives. You don't know what it's like if you've never been through it. So I'll say it can't help everybody, but it can help somebody. And if you have the ability to help someone and you choose not to because you don't understand it, you need to try to educate yourself. Or 2, you just don't care. And I think we care. But I tell you what, it could have saved my dad's life. And I wish it was around then. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell.
Mayor, I'd be okay at 3 as well.
Thank you, Mr. West. Last time we spoke, each of us said a number. What was proposed was 5 dispensaries in Middletown. We heard anywhere from 0 to 2, 3, and 4. It sounds like the majority of council is looking at 3 at this point. Looking at the survey that we took, and of course the surveys aren't perfect. This is online for people who are online, but people in Middletown do support medical marijuana very much. And at this point, we're not going to be able to distinguish between medical and recreational. I appreciate everything that's been said. There are people who are for this. There are people who are against. We will need education on how marijuana affects us, especially when people think, oh, it's okay to drive. It's safer to drive with being high than being drunk. That is not the case. And there is a need for this here as far as being able to help people, as was spoken about tonight. I think 1 is a good place to start. To Mr. Horn's point last meeting, we can always add, but we cannot take away. I appreciated the citizen comment tonight from such a compassionate business owner wanting to give back to the community. I'm happy, I could be satisfied with 1 location to start with. But at this point, it seems like the consensus is 3, unless we would like to talk about taking that number down a little further. No. Okay, so it looks like, unless there's any other comment. No? All right, so to proceed, do we just need to make a motion to amend?
Yeah, exactly. You would just someone would need to make a motion to approve ordinance number O-2024-42 with the amendment that the maximum number of dispensaries be 3.
Is there a motion to approve ordinance number O-2024-42 to approve with the amendment that the limit of dispensaries in Middletown be moved to 3?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Mrs. Skank, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Horn.
Yes.
Mayor Slanka.
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Mrs. Carter.
Yes.
Mr. West.
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the ordinance passes. Mr. Yoder, the next item, please.
Item number 4 is ordinance number O-2024-45, an ordinance amending various sections of Chapter 1436, which pertains to property maintenance, in Section 1604.01, pertaining to the Middletown Fire Code in 2005, Ohio Fire Code is adopted, and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Lally.
Council, the legislation here is to present amendments to various sections of Middletown Codified Ordinance on property maintenance and Middletown Codified Ordinance on the Middletown Fire Code and the Ohio Fire Code. Changes are in a few sections here. 1436.01, the International Property Maintenance Code. 1436.04, repair of building and structures. 1436.05 on extension of time. 1436.06 on remedial action, and 1604.01, the Ohio Fire Code and the Middletown Fire Code. In order to, essentially this is in order to expedite service notice of property maintenance violation in the following manner: to deliver the notice personally, to deliver it via certified mail to the tax mailing address or the agent mailing address, and to do the same by regular mail, and then also to post it in a conspicuous sorry about that. That one's hard to say.
I do it all the time.
Place on the structure. Also to change reference standards in Middletown Codified Ordinance 1436.01, referenced other cities' codes that were made to enforce the International Property Code. Also, language is being updated in 1436.01 to use the term current edition of the Ohio Building Code and the Residential Code of Ohio, so we're not using a year. That way we don't have to change it in the future. We always use the current year. And there was a typo correction from that referenced 1436.06, and we need to correct it to 1436.01. And then renaming 1436.06 remedial action to failure to comply with notices and/or orders, and also adding language to clarify the violation language. And then lastly, taking out the reference to the 2005 Ohio Fire Code, again, to use the term current edition of the Ohio Fire Code as adopted by the state of Ohio.
Thank you very much. That was very clear, very thorough. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And Mr. Lawley, would you please explain why it's an emergency?
Oh, thank you. It's an emergency, so we can get going implementing the changes.
Okay. And just to be clear, just had a quick question. We have a couple of options. We have a few different options for code enforcement, getting the word to people. So one of them is posting somewhere conspicuous and sending a regular letter, correct? Not a certified?
And certified.
And certified, so it's posting and certified. And then there's another way to do it, which is just a certified. And then...
I can deal with that. One of the problems has always been when you attempt to perfect service of a notice of violation, the typical legal way in which that would be done is you would send it certified mail to the tax mailing address or the agent's address is listed on the auditor's website. But if it comes back as refused or unclaimed, then that typically doesn't work, and we flounder around wondering how do we deal with that. So we modified it to basically say you can either post it on you can either send it certified mail. Hold on, let me get to the actual section of that, but it basically gives you 3 options for that. Where am I on that one? Because I had to think through this and what's the best way to order it. So if you can deliver it personally to the person, if you know it's them, that's option 1. That's just the cleanest. If you hand it to them at the door and say, here's your notice of violation, that's fine. Second is if it's sent by certified mail, return receipt requested, and if it's actually evidenced by return receipt. So you can prove, yes, this person got it, then that works. If that comes back as unclaimed or refused and you can't find the person, that's where we'll flounder a lot. So then we thought, okay, we'll do posting it actually physically on the property and then sending it ordinary mail. So first would be, you could do personal delivery. Second would be certified mail, return receipt requested, evidence that they received it because they signed it. Worst case scenario, so we're not floundering anymore, we'll post a sign on the property that says, here's the notice of violation, and then we'll also send a courtesy copy, ordinary mail.
Thank you. That was the question, just the ordinary mail, because we probably would have tried.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very
I
much.
have a question.
Yes.
So in the past, because you've seen them throughout the city, what the agent would do is you had an optic orange or optic yellow sticker on the front door. So are they still going to do that and hand them a letter, or was that just not working, or did they not care?
What was happening was we've adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, and it set out the options in which, the ways in which to do it, which allowed you to do it personally, or it allowed you to do it certified mail, return receipt requested. It didn't, as the immediate option, allow you to just post it on the property as well. So we decided to deviate from the draft or model to include posting it on the property and sending it ordinary mail. But while it was done before, it wasn't one of the International Property Code's accepted methods of proving that service was perfected. So just trying to clean that up.
So we're adopting a code just so it makes it better for for litigation.
We're adopting a modification to model codes service provision that will allow us to perfect service more easily.
But to my point is if there was litigation in a situation in the electrical world, they would say, okay, here's the NEC 2023 code article, and why, this is why. Because if you just say, well, it did that because they wired it wrong, that doesn't really stand up really when you're trying to convince someone they need to do something right. But if you have an article saying, here's the international code, here's the article number, this is why we're doing this, it makes it easier for a judge to say, yes, and you're going to be fined, and you're going to do this.
Yeah, and for every litigation case there is, you have to perfect service of your complaint against that person. A judge will want to know, okay, I know you have a complaint that you said that they did wrong. Are you sure that they actually got a copy of that complaint?
Absolutely.
And so the perfection of service has been kind of a hiccup that's been difficult at times when you don't know where a property owner is, and they will not accept the certified mail that we've frankly floundered around more so than I wish that we would. This will allow us, worst case scenario, put it on the property, send them a copy. I can go into court and tell the judge, yes, service was perfected, and we did it by a way that was approved by council and codified in our ordinances.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. This might be a silly question, but just curious, can phone calls be made if they're like out of state, or emails? How does that work? Or is that not allowed?
All those can be made, but they're not a legally recognized means of perfecting notice. Some way or another, you got to get that piece of paper in their hands.
Right. Written record. Thank you. All right. Is there any other further discussion for the legislation? No? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the ordinance passes. Mr. Yoder, the next item, please.
Fifth item is ordinance number O 2024-46, an ordinance changing the zoning classification for one parcel at the end of Bonita Drive from R4, which is an attached residential district, to PD, which is a planned development district, and approving a preliminary plan and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes, Council, this is a request by applicant Philip Brandon for the approval of a preliminary development plan to construct three-unit condominiums at the intersection of Bonita Drive and Eaton Avenue. The property is a total of 1.02 acres. The project will need approval by the City Council for the plan development, map amendment, and zone change.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Drove past Brandon Holmes' new construction home yesterday on the old Roosevelt site. And thanks, Phil, for not throwing up some vinyl piece of crap.
We were looking at it today, and it's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's nice when a developer comes along and actually does what they say they're going to do. So,
and if you look at what he built on Rosedale, and just it's really, he does a great job.
No, there is no discussion on that, and actually that's a good point of clarification at some point I was going to bring up. And so a few council, the reason there isn't discussion on that tonight is that the actual public comment, where you could provide testimony in favor or against it, occurred at the last council meeting. All this is passing the legislation, whether or not to approve or not. And actually the part I was going to get into, this is maybe a good intro to it, was remember I talked about I'd like to change some things up because the way our charter is structured, basically on rezonings, you got to have a public hearing, but then you also have to have 2 readings of the involved legislation. So typically the way in which it was done before was staff would just always put together legislation approving it in case you wanted to pass it. But we were kind of reading the tea leaves preemptively about what council might want to do, which could create kind of the false presumption that, oh, council is already in favor of this, otherwise why would there be legislation there? So what we had advised a few meetings back ago was to change it to where have the public hearing and just basically orally vote on that, which will be nothing more than a straw poll, that we would then memorialize, tweak that legislation. We'd still do that first reading that night on the legislation, but then we could come back at the second meeting where you're actually voting like you will be tonight, to approve or deny, however you want. I will say you guys did great. I watched the video back from the last meeting. You held a good public hearing and you discussed it. We kind of guessed what you might want to have done, but the one thing you didn't do is just actually vote. So the next time around, I would encourage you all, just at the public hearing where you have all the testimony, before you go ahead and vote, and then we can tweak the legislation for the second reading, which you'll have tonight, and we're not left guessing of what you're wanting to do.
And just to clarify, that would just be, we could even call it a straw vote because we're not actually voting on the legislation, we're just giving our consensus.
Yep, and then we can actually tweak the legislation to literally say what you said.
Thank you. And also, just because somebody did mention if they can speak this evening, would you mind just explaining kind of the next steps after tonight and if there is another option or opportunity for people to speak?
Yeah, so this is it's a combined both rezoning of the property, which is where you literally change the color on the map from one color to another. It is both doing that to the map, and then it's also a preliminary PUD or plan development plan. What that basically does is set up the generalities of what the plan will look like. Areas that are going to be used, general density, setbacks, utilities, things of that nature, but it's not the final plans that will be coming forth. To the extent that council tonight approves legislation, both rezoning the property and approving the plan development, next will come a final development plan that the applicant will have to put forth as well, and there will be an additional hearing before Planning Commission on that. So that's another opportunity that the public will get to provide input on the eventual final plans to the extent council approves them tonight.
Correct. So
She can't, that's out of order.
yeah, I'm sorry. We can't take comments from the public right now, but what I did want to explain is that there will be another opportunity, and you can always email, I'm assuming Mr. Brandon, and perhaps we can get his email address, but there will be another public hearing from the Planning Commission if this passes tonight, where the public will be able to speak in opposed or for. So are there any other comments or questions from council?
I have comments. I'm actually on the planning board as a liaison, so I've actually seen this gone through, and the group there, this is preliminary. So what that means is this is not the final drawings, this is not the final anything. This is Brandon Builders saying they want this area changed. Keep in mind that this is private property, not a park. This is the owner. Actually, I've walked this property, and it's good for development. And again, as we have been told by the state, we need about 3,000 more units built in our city to help folks out. And I do believe Brandon Builders has reached out to folks in this neighborhood and has offered to put up a natural fence or a wood fence to stop the seeing of these condos. I understand. No, that, ma'am.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
It's not a discussion. And actually, last meeting, you had an opportunity for the public hearing. You could have spoke for not 4 minutes, for 45 or 2 hours. So, anyways.
I'm sorry, we do have to, please, the back and forth can stop because
Yeah.
we have to keep this for council at this
And
point.
again, for the final, you will actually we'll have another public hearing for the final deal. So this is preliminary. This is just the going forward. So, again, the thing I want to say is, because I've lived here the majority of my life, and I've seen developments, and I would say also the folks that live there, at one time your property was probably being developed, and the houses around there, maybe they didn't want those condos there, but they're still there. So sometimes we need to adapt and adjust and just say, look, we're trying to make houses better. One of the things that I am pushing through, which eventually will get to us, is the fact that we're not going to have vinyl houses because we live in a steel town, and the things just get ugly. So we're trying to make even the housing better for at least the first level, and not on just public streets, on public and private streets. We're just taking the public portion out of this. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that we have to be able to welcome the next generation, and not all of them can afford a brand new home. It might have to be a condominium that unfortunately costs between $150,000 to $250,000. We want to welcome new citizens here. There is wording in here where these will not be rentals, because I know everyone has a concern about that because we have so many rentals in our city. Brandon Builders is a good builder. But let me give you a true story. So they have I live on Central, they put on the model home, they start digging, nothing happens. They do the basement, and they put the footers in. And right next door, house goes up for sale. And that house sells within a week. Someone said, I'm not going to live near Roosevelt Ridge. I'm guessing, but I'm thinking that's what happened. Okay, fine. Then whoever bought that house, they will live by Roosevelt Ridge, which was the old Roosevelt School, which I went to. So again, this is preliminary, and ma'am, you get to speak at the next public hearing. So when the next public hearing comes, please come and you can speak as long as you want.
Mr. Horn, let's keep it for council.
I am. Citizens, we're here for them. You're welcome. But this is preliminary, and we went through 3 meetings for preliminary instead of the normal 2. So
I do have to ask that we do keep this not a question and back and forth, or else I'm going to have to ask that we stop.
So this is what this is about. This is the preliminary. So we changed the zoning where actually Brandon Builders could have not rezoned this to add more condos. They could have built 4 apartments and not ask anyone's permission and gone on with their lives. So they're trying to make Middletown a little better. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. I do want to have the conversation a little bit. We're approving 2 things tonight, if I understand correctly. We're approving the zone change from R4 to PD, but then we're also approving, like Mr. Yoder said, the general preliminary plan. Mr. Yoder, could you speak very briefly about the zone change? Because, well, I'll actually start this way. So the last meeting during the public hearing, I had asked a question about the zone change from R4 to PD, and how there is a requirement if you're going to change to a planned development you must have at least 5 acres, and this is 1.02 acres. So the question was, okay, so we look at the code, our own development code, and it says unless it's a unique project situation. So I had done some research on that, had some conversations, and it looks like whether the land itself is unique or if the project is unique, that's what I've learned. But Mr. Yoder, could you speak a little bit to that to see how this can work?
Yeah, sure. So whenever a applicant wants to submit for zoning, the code has them do a pre-development meeting with staff. There are guidelines in the code that help guide staff on how to advise applicants. One of those sections basically says when to use a PUD or not. And one of the standards is when it's over 5 acres, or if there's basically the project is unique, warranting it to be treated as a PUD. There's an additional section that says basically like, hey, could you do this a different way? Could you just do it through a rezoning or through variances? The point is planned unit developments are supposed to be used when needed. It's kind of a customized thing for a special product or a unique project that's going in as opposed to that. That standard is really there less so for council's involvement than it is for staff's. It's what helps staff know how to advise the applicants at those pre-meetings. But later on then in the code section, it literally lays out the standards that are included in the staff report for what council is supposed to use when determining whether or not to approve but modify or deny planning commission's recommendation. So while there is a uniqueness statement in the code as it relates to planned developments, it's more geared towards advising staff on what to say to applicants than it is for council to use as a standard for deciding whether or not to approve or not.
And that having happened, then what we do is we look at the review criteria just like Planning Commission did, and then we just go through that, and that's how we can approve or not.
Absolutely.
Right. So one of the things that we also did, we received all the letters, communications from residents in Emerald Green and Mallard Court. I don't remember any from Eaton Avenue. And it seems like the biggest concern at this point was trees. I have some other concerns about the area because it is quite small. One of them is parking. It's my understanding that there will be a garage, 1-car garage, and then I think a driveway where another car can fit, but there's no on-street parking. So that's just one thing I'm looking at. It's a bit of concern. Then I think I asked about the stormwater detention/retention pool. So there will be one. I was hoping that there could be some really good work. Were there any issues found for flooding in the area? Anything at all? Is that known at this time?
Not that I'm aware of, and that's where we communicated today that they are putting a small detention pond to the east or west?
Yeah.
South.
I just wanted to be sure. Yes, thank you. I just wanted to be sure that that is definitely studied very well in case there are further issues. But then, because of the trees, the importance of the trees to the neighbors and the importance of privacy, that's one thing people said. They want the privacy, but they're also going to miss the trees. So I would approve with modifications this legislation. And I'm not sure exactly how to word the modification, but it would be basically to have that landscape buffer. It was talked about last time about like a fence or trees. I would like to see trees for both Emerald Green and the Mallard Court side. In that way, there could be that privacy. I think there are going to be 2 stories. And then people, like if we had maybe some evergreens or pines that would keep that foliage all year long, so even during the winter.
Ma'am, this is not time to provide any public comment, and if you're going to continue to not comply, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I don't need a...
So I think some of those things, your suggestion will come at the next hearing, correct?
No, actually.
Yes.
So it can be whatever you want it to be. As it relates, Planning Commission makes the recommendation, and then council makes to basically approve with modifications or deny. If council thinks that there's a heightened sensitivity to one general condition, such as landscape buffering between neighborhoods or whatever, you can modify it. Would be, section 1 of the ordinance that's drafted deals with approving the rezoning. Section 2 deals with the preliminary plan. And so, for instance, it already says the property will utilize, or the property will be utilized for three-unit condominiums, 6 ranch style units, 3 two-story units. There's a little bit of stuff that's there. If you wanted to add something more, you'd be lawfully allowed to do that.
I would like to see that as just an approved with modifications, because Mr. Brandon already did speak to, like I said, like has been said, he's been very excellent with speaking to the public. He's willing to speak. He's trying to do his best to create something that Middletown wants, and I'm very proud that he's also a Middletown native. But I could see that maybe that land, and to the point, the landscape buffer could also be an opaque fence. But just to make sure that there's something on both sides. I feel like the people on Mallard Court were more concerned with the trees as well. That's an option tonight. So is that a consent? Do we do it like a consensus, or do I make a motion?
I think the motion, where are we? Has the motion it's been moved and seconded?
It's been moved and seconded. We're just talking. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's up to council,
Yeah.
council members to give you input of whether they
So,
support that type of an amendment.
Amendment, yeah.
thanks, Ben. So, Mr. Brandon, just to be correct, there's at least 18 parking spaces.
Should we invite him to the
totality of the project?
That's what I recall, yes.
I would caution against having Mr. Brandon come up because, again, the public hearing was last time.
Sure.
And if you're going to let Mr. Brandon come up, you should let the neighbor that wants to as well. However, there's not been proper notice to the public that there would be potentially additional input given to
Does anyone from staff know the answer to how many parking spots?
That is my understanding from the public hearing last week. That's what I recall also.
Okay, so I think it's pretty common that you have, in a condo complex, for example, El Dorado Estates, where I used to live, it was 2 per space, or 2 per unit. There was no on-street parking, so I think that's pretty common for condos, so I'm not really too worried about that. As far as your proposal, I personally, to me, I think that's more of something to work on later down the line. I mean, this is still going to go through the process. I'm not saying you're wrong in that, but I don't necessarily think, personally to me, it's the right time for that. So that's kind of where I'm at, I guess, with it.
other council agree?
Yeah, I mean, this is looking at the zoning aspect of it, so.
And the plan itself as well, that's
Yeah.
a section 2.
But I mean, there's going to be several more meetings and discussions on the specifics in it, so. Yeah.
More discussion is going to be happening, so the final is not till, and then we have another public hearing where everyone can have their conversation. But I would also caution, we have to show a little bit of kindness to these folks that are going to be purchasing them and not feel that they're boxed in, because that's what I believe Mr. Brandon mentioned about the back end. We understand with Emerald folks, because that's their patios and that's what they're seeing. But the Mallard folks, it might not be so much. Just be cautionary about, boxing this group in, like, okay, you're here and you can't see the rest of the world. Again, this is just, to me, like I said, I've been through this 3 times. So I'm just saying this is preliminary. This is the first steps, and then it has to go through other groups, and then they come back with their recommendations, and then we can say, yeah, we still want this. If you want our approval, that's what you have to do, and that's after we hear more from Brennan and also the citizens.
And one point of clarification, though, on that is council approves the preliminary plan, but then the final plan is approved exclusively by Planning Commission. So it won't come back before council again, just to make sure everyone understands.
And thank you because I wanted to, that's why I asked for the steps, so that we could know exactly what's happening and where people can speak again in public, on record. Well, like I said, Mr. Brandon works well with the public, and I do feel that it's fine just for me to at least say that, to recognize that the residents have written in. They probably will want to speak more. The fence was mentioned, and trees were mentioned by multiple people. And so it sounds like there's no consensus for the amendment, so we will, if there's no further discussion, are there any other comments or questions? Nope, okay. Then we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slanka?
Yes, the yeses have it and the legislation passes. Mr. Yoder, the next item, please.
Next item is resolution number R 2024-21. Oh, my mic was off, my apologies. Six items, resolution number R 2024-21, a resolution accepting the material terms of the One Ohio political subdivision settlement on behalf of the city of Middletown in accordance with the One Ohio Memorandum of Understanding and the terms of the July 21st, 2021 National Opioid Settlement Agreement with respect to national opioid settlements involving Kroger Company and declaring an emergency. No actions requested till the July 16th meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Lawley.
Yes, Council, just as he stated, the proposed legislation would accept the proposed settlement by One Ohio with the opioid litigation with Kroger Company. We have had several of these settlements over the last couple years, namely some of them with Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and others. We have approximately to date a balance of $282,291.72. We do not know how much money this settlement will bring, but what we have to have is an agreement that Middletown will move forward with One Ohio, and then we will find out at a later date how much we exactly get from the Kroger settlement.
Thank you, Mr. Lawley. And there's no action tonight, but is there any further discussion, any questions or clarifications? No. Let's see here. I have a question actually about, are there certain restrictions how the money can be spent?
Just in the scope of back towards programs that deal with addiction and recoveries. We have met with the police department, the fire department, the courts, and the health department in determining a plan going forward. It looks like we're going to settle in the area of spending it in the court for rehabilitation programs.
And I believe some has been spent already. Might you speak to that?
Yeah, just a little bit for the program we run for the heroin response team, the One Ohio for Recovery. We spent some there to fund them this year. I think it was about $40,000.
Okay, thank you. If there's no further discussion, then we will go ahead and move on to the next item.
Seventh item is ordinance number O 2024-47, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of notes in the maximum principal amount of $7,450,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the costs of the acquisition of the town mall and related structures located on, excuse me, parcel numbers 703-153-006, 703-1760, 40.
Please take a moment. You need a Ricola?
All right, we'll get there. 703-176041 and 703-17-2002 in costs of related due diligence, title work, and design services, together with all necessary appurtenance thereto, all in support of economic development and job creation within the city, and declaring an emergency. No actions requested till July 16th.
Thank you, Mr. Yoder. Mr. Lawley?
Council, the proposed legislation authorizes the issuance of bond anticipation notes in order to partially reimburse the general fund monies previously appropriated by City Council for the purchase of the town mall site. As City Council is aware, the city is a party to the purchase and the sale agreement for the acquisition of the town mall commercial site properties. The purchase price was under the agreement of $10 million. The city has previously appropriated and authorized the expenditure of that amount from the general fund reserve. Essentially, What this will do is, it's a one-year note that we pay annually, principal plus interest. We do not know exactly what the interest rate will be, but the highest it can be is 7.5%. However, we do not anticipate that it will be that high. The principal is 7.45 million. At that time it comes due, we will make a recommendation to council on how to move forward, i.e. to merge with other bands and or bonds. And certainly we will keep council updated as to what looks best in 1 year. We're anticipating, hoping that lower interest rates will be in the future. Also, we'll have a lot more information and a good idea of the plan going forward through the 2025 budget.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Would you just please speak why it's an emergency for the next meeting?
What's that?
Would you please speak to just the reason why it's an emergency for next meeting?
To get the bands accomplished in the time frame it needs to be done with the closing of the sale of the mall.
Okay, very well. There is no action tonight, but is there any discussion or comment? Okay, seeing none, we will go ahead and continue. Mr. Yoder, the last legislation I begin.
Sure. Eighth and final item is ordinance number O-2024-48, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with statewide Ford for the purchase of 4 2024 Ford Police Interceptor utility vehicles for the Division of Police and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Mr. Lally.
Yes, council, this is to purchase, request approval to purchase 4 2024 Ford Interceptor utility vehicles for the police department, totaling $243,364. And this is an emergency in order to get these vehicles purchased as soon as possible. We do not want to lose the opportunity to purchase these vehicles through any delay.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the ordinance?
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
What's the, oh, sorry, Paul.
Just one question for Paul. So this was a package deal, so they had 4 vehicles and you had to purchase them?
Correct.
The only reason I ask that is because we've extended your checkbook to $100,000. So this, anytime there's an opportunity, you know.
Yes.
But this is we have 4 cars and you got to buy them right now kind of thing.
And we need to, absolutely, we need to act as quickly as possible, or there's somebody waiting in line to snag those 4 vehicles up.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I assume we'll see pretty soon the upfitting legislation form?
Andy, do you know the upfitting for these vehicles, or does this include the upfitting?
Okay, good.
So you will not see it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured it'd be right around there. Okay, good.
So Mr. Tadich said that he believes that the upfitting would be less than $100,000, which means it could be taken care of by the city manager. Just wanted to repeat that because he doesn't have a mic. Is there any other comment or any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the ordinance passes. This concludes legislation for the evening. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Do any council members have anything they would like to bring up under unfinished business?
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Horn.
Law Director Ben, where are we at on the release of the restrictions at the senior center?
Sure. The restriction is held by AK Steel, Cleveland Cliffs. We've been in conversations with them. They've agreed in principle to release those. However, these things take time. We've gone back and forth on a couple different drafts of release language. The ball's in their court, but I expect we should be getting that soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
So we, as a city council, me personally, other people have kind of been, if you've been on social media, kind of dragged through the mud of code enforcement. Obviously, some people support it, some don't, etc. But we did tell the citizens at the last meeting that we would kind of have this grant program up and going, and I don't see anything on it. Nonetheless, an update. So I didn't know where that's at.
So we plan to have it finalize the addition to the $3,000 up to the $8,500 before this starts July 8th.
Okay.
And we will be putting out information actually over the next several days. We're going to be communicating and educating the public on the purpose of this code enforcement sweep and people's options to fix the code enforcement violations we find, and we're going to work towards, compliance. And we hope we don't have to go to the more serious natured route.
So in order to live up to the timeline you just expressed, we would have to do that this week.
Yes.
So that will be done. So the 4th being on Thursday.
Yep.
So that'll be done like tomorrow?
Yep. Well, I don't know if it'll be done tomorrow, but by Friday it'll be done.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just know that it's what we told the public, and we're going to get killed again for it, telling the public something. We've told them that this would go well, and we kind of failed at our word there. So it's just frustrating because now we're going to get bashed online again.
Yep. Well, yeah, I get it. I understand it. And once again, these things do take a little bit of time for staff to get everything in line and make sure we get the proper information out there and make sure everything is legal and proceeding the way it needs to proceed.
Okay.
The other thing we talked about was increasing the amount of funding available for this.
Yes. So right now, we initially had $800,000 in this fund, and I believe we've spent not quite $400,000. So right now, we're fine with the amount of money we have from the last discussion we had with council to put $4,000 or $5,000 additional dollars into this.
So now, we're still working with west of Brill,
Yes.
and then we will change that when? What date did you say?
So starting next week with the code enforcement sweep, July 8th, we will implement the program west of Brill.
Okay, and then after west of Brill, will we go south?
At that time, we'll make a determination if we want to expand it east of Brill. But west of Brill pretty much means from Oxford State Road to State Route 73. So that's, everything but east of Brill on the east end of Middletown.
So does that involve Prospect Avenue?
Yes.
And Yankee Road?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Did we decide if there's any income limit for that? Was that decided yet?
I don't think so. No, not,
Anybody
there
can
is not an income limit.
Okay, so anybody can apply.
And do we ever hear back? I know, Ben, you've been working on this as far as like Social Security, if people are on Social Security for the other side of Brill, if that was going to be possible for them to potentially apply for this as well.
I don't believe that that's one of the standards that's included in there, whether or not they are or aren't on Social Security. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. Yeah, that's not a standard that's put in there, whether people do or don't get Social Security. I don't think that that's going to be something that's legally enforceable to do that. I mean, the funds are going to be available in part regardless of the ability to pay. But to single out a class such as that.
No. You're misunderstanding what I'm saying.
Oh, sorry.
No, so we had discussed that for people essentially that live on, let's say, the east side of Brill, that their house needs work, but they're on Social Security, they're older, or they have a medical handicap, et cetera, would they be able to apply as well?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
I'm wondering if we have a landlord list, landlords that have properties throughout Middletown and they do not repair.
Well, in order to apply, you have to present your deed that says it's in your name.
Right. This is owner occupied.
Yeah. We're not trying to make the landlords rich on this. This is owner occupied.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good.
One thing I guess I'm curious about is how we can ensure that the people in most need are the ones getting the grants.
Once again, this is on a first come, first served basis, and as the applications come in, we will process them.
Okay.
Good.
Any further unfinished business?
Let me ask this too, sorry, just so if anybody's watching. A few people have asked me if fences are viable, but I would assume it wouldn't be we're going to pay to put a new fence up for somebody if they don't have a fence. It's an existing fence. Am I correct in that?
No, you can put up a new fence.
But if you have no fence, you can still go and put up a fence?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
It's improving your property.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
Good.
Kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with code enforcement, some residents had talked about, and we talked about this at the last meeting as well, about what the city would be doing for our own properties. Is that something that we've been?
We have addressed that with our Public Works Director and other department heads who oversee those particular sites, and we have a plan in place to make sure we clean our own house also.
That might be nice to include in the education that we're going to be doing and the advertisement for this to let people know what the city's doing as well.
And when some of this stuff goes out, I've talked with Clayton about that will be addressed.
Okay, very well, thank you. One item I just wanted to mention is that we did have a resignation from Historic Commission. So I just wanted to put it out there that we will be looking for another applicant to Historic Commission. So it looks like we would be probably pulling people who've already applied for Historic Commission and then new applications. So if you're interested in that, please do apply. You can go, yes, please.
We also have an opening on the Airport Commission. Because there was a vacancy, there was a resignation on the last agenda from that. So we have 2 open vacancies right now.
Right. So if that's something that you wish to do to give back in that way, please do check out our website, cityofmiddletown.org, and you can see the different boards and commissions and see what is needed for each one. Anything else for unfinished business? No. Okay, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is new business. Do any council members want to bring up anything under new business?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Horn.
Paul, on this Middletown Now, who approves the final draft?
Staff did.
Okay, is there a specific, I mean, is it the economic director, is it Ashley, is it?
So it's
I'd like a
essentially,
conversation with
essentially our communications manager and senior staff in the city manager's administration area.
Okay, I just like to, still learning everyone, and would like to meet with someone, just have some conversation. I've had some citizens make some comments, good and bad. Not good and bad, well, good and bad. Just like to meet with someone to say, this is the comments I'm hearing about, so when we have our fall issue.
I'll set that up.
Yep, I'd appreciate it.
Great. And we encourage the feedback like that. That will help us for future.
The one thing that just so everyone hears, what they would like to see, I mean, it's not so much that the health, but like the, and this is just maybe my generation and generation before, when you have the, what was the comment, which I didn't leave notes, but like the upcoming events, which is great, a lot of people like to just see a box, July box, or June box, July box, August box, and then the dates. It's almost like they can fill in their little calendar or put it on their phone. Even though that might take more space up, or maybe that's put on the back. That was just one comment, was this is great, and I mean, it's clear, but sometimes people just like to see that boxes like they see their calendars. So,
and I think Clayton's received some feedback also, and once again, that's our first one. It's awesome, and but we can always improve it.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what I mean. It's just a step, and it just helps everyone know what's going on.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Speaking to that, I believe when this first came out, we spoke about how after the second issue, we would be asking, as a city, we'd be asking for feedback. Is that still correct?
Yes.
Mr. Lawley?
Yes.
Okay, great. So has it been talked about how we'll be asking for that feedback after the second issue?
I would say we'll do surveys. We'll invite online people to comment online. Once again, we use surveys. Contact us through email. Clayton, I'm sure you get a lot of feedback from people in general. So pretty much how we look and get feedback from a lot of sources.
I would also add perhaps that because one of the reasons we made the newsletter was to reach populations who aren't really online much, who don't email.
Right, that's
I'd
only one
encourage-
vehicle.
Right, so I'd encourage phone calls as well.
Yeah.
Because we can also, if we're not there, we can return the phone calls and hear them live if they don't want to get online. All right.
Yeah, because a lot of the times we posted the survey in various places around town where people could go and take them in restaurants or coffee shops, things like that.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else that anybody would like to bring up under new business?
I just did want to say on that note that, Clayton, you did a nice job on that. I know other staff chipped in, but, you know, there were some people kind of grumbling, like, why are we going to spend the money on that? But yeah, it's pretty normal in other communities. You know what I mean? So, and at Paul's point, you know, a lot of people just kind of take that calendar out, put it up on their fridge. So I think this is, all the feedback that I got, you know, from people that were even against it, they're like, this is kind of cool. So, nice work, everybody. I mean, it was a surprise to get it in the mail, and it looked really good.
I was up at the John 23rd Festival last weekend. I got just an incredible number of positive feedbacks on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like Councilmember Horn said, I got some suggestions also. Hey, to make it better, that's what we want. You know, we encourage that type of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you. Is there any other new business or any other comments? No? Okay, hearing none, we will go on to the next item on the agenda, which is executive session. Do I hear a motion to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official?
Motion?
Do you have a second?
Second.
It has been properly moved and seconded to move to executive session. We will proceed to vote. Mrs. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Mayor Slamka?
Yes.
Mrs. Carter?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
The yeses have it, and the motion passes. Council will now move to executive session. We will be returning to open session to adjourn.